My first renovation project took a year longer than expected, and the worst part was this property was completely vacant during this entire time, so my partners and I had to pay the mortgage each and every month. If you're new to my channel, my name is Koukun and I'm a real estate investor and I run a real estate team here in the Niagara region. If you're interested in learning a bit more about what we do, check out the link in the comments below for our top 5 real estate investing strategies. Now, I got started in real estate investing close to a decade ago. The first property I bought was a single family home in a great neighborhood that I was trying to rent out and create some positive cash flow. The challenge I learned with owning single family rentals is that they don't actually create positive cash flow very well. I was trying to charge a rent above what the market would bear at that time, and we experienced a 6-month-long vacancy as a result. So I had to drop the rent to what the market rent was. We ended up getting it rented out. Even once it was rented out, the property could not create any positive cash flow. It was breaking even and even losing money some months. Around this time, I had been talking to a few investors who had told me they were investing in student rentals, which is kind of like a rooming house near a university that's rented to a group of students. I then bought a student rental property and the cash flow was great. From the get-go, I was renting the property to 5 or 6 students, making over $1,000 a month in positive monthly cash flow, and it even went up as high as $2,000 a month, so it was great on a monthly cash flow perspective. The challenge that comes with student rentals is that it requires a lot more hands-on management. I personally had to find new tenants almost every single year while I owned that property. And even after you find tenants, these are students who usually have not lived away from their parents up to that point. So there was a lot more hands-on involvement. We offer internet with our student rentals, and I remember my students complaining the internet was not working. This was the time I was working at my corporate job, and in my breaks and in my lunch hours, I was calling the internet provider, troubleshooting with them, troubleshooting with the tenants. It was just a ton of work that was not the type of work I was interested in doing. I knew there had to be a better way of investing in real estate where I could attract great tenants and buy a home in a great neighborhood while still having some positive cash flow. Around this time, the province of Ontario introduced legislation that mandated all cities need to provide a framework where you can create a legal second suite or a legal basement apartment. I had heard of a few investors who were implementing this strategy. They were buying bungalows, adding legal basement apartments, and renting out both units. And I thought to myself, maybe this was the strategy that I was looking for. Armed with this information, I went out and I purchased a property in the city of St. Catharines. This was actually already a 2-unit property that was not legal, but I went ahead with the process of renovating it and bringing it up to a legal standard as per the city. As you probably know from the story at the beginning of the video, this was the property that took over a year to complete, longer than I expected. So initially it was a 3-month project. It actually took a year and 3 months. One of the biggest lessons I learned from this was the city you invest in matters. The city of St. Catharines, from my experience, was not friendly to investors. Their planning department, their building department, their building inspectors, all of them seemed to want to make the process longer and more painful than it needed to be. And the contractor I was working with was also busy, having some personal issues, and during this time he had to work with a building inspector who was constantly adding on tasks that needed to get done at each and every inspection, so it was dragging this process far longer than I was happy with. During this time, I was working as a real estate agent, helping investors buy properties. I knew that if I wanted to help my clients do this, I did not want them to have to go through the same pains that I went through. Here are my takeaways from this experience. 1, the city you work in matters. Since then, we found the gem of a city of Welland where the building department, the planning department, the inspectors are all far more friendly to investors. It's not easy, but they are far more welcoming to investors as long as you meet their requirements. 2, the team you work with matters. You need to work with people who have integrity and experience. They need to have integrity, which means they will do what they say they're going to do despite how busy they get, or even if it puts them in an unfortunate situation. An example of that is some of the contractors we work with have had to pay more in cost than what they were charging their clients. They, put a bulk price for the entire project, and during the course of the renovation, the materials they estimated became more expensive than expected. Some of our contractors have ate that cost themselves and taken it out of their profit. Experience means that they need to understand the strategy inside and out. If you don't work with people who know what they're doing, it is going to be much more difficult to get this type of project done. And of the people that you need on your team, some of the key players are the realtor you work with. In my case, even though I was a realtor, I did not have any experience with this strategy when I bought that first project. And as a result, I bought a property that right now I would not recommend to my clients to purchase. We also did not have an architect when we did this project. We simply used the contact that our contractor recommended, who was his brother, who was an engineer, and this was not his specialty. As a result, we had to go back and forth with the city multiple times to get our permits approved. And finally, you need to work with a contractor who knows what they're doing in terms of working with the city and meeting the building code requirements, and is able to anticipate what the building inspectors are going to ask for so that they're doing it ahead of time. You don't want them to constantly learn each time the building inspector comes out, because your project is going to be delayed if that's the case. And since learning all of this, I've personally been able to buy another property now in the city of Welland, where I added a legal basement apartment, rented both units out, and it was creating close to $1,000 of cash flow each and every month. And our team has been able to help hundreds of investors do the same strategy. Working with our trusted partners, they've been able to buy properties, add 1 or 2 units into the basement, create positive cash flow, and build a ton of equity. Now, if you got to this far in the video, I want to ask you a question. Have you felt overwhelmed by the idea of doing a renovation project? I know most of us have. And do you feel fear when it comes to working with city permits and hiring contractors? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And going back to my first renovation project, that property has since created over $150,000 in equity, and it creates positive monthly cash flow each and every month. So at the end of the day, everything all worked out. Until next time, all the best.